Hello, my friends. April is National Poetry Month, and it gives me great joy to invite you to join me in our April Poetry Celebration. We'll spend a joyful month reading poetry, writing poetry, and loving poetry. This is actually our 6th annual celebration. And I want to say right here at the beginning that you do not have to be a poet, you don't have to be experienced, you don't have to be anything other than who you are to join us. Poets of all ages, backgrounds, experience levels are very much welcome. And I'll explain in just a moment how to join us. First, I'll just introduce myself briefly to say my name is Kate Chadbourne. I am a poet myself, a teacher of poetry, and a lifelong poetry lover. And one of my greatest pleasures is to be in poetic company, the company of other poets. I love to hold the door open and say, come on inside. You don't have to be anything other than but what you are to be a poet and to love poetry. So what is this celebration and how do you take part? So every Monday from here until the end of April, I will be posting a video every noontime on Monday in which I'll share poetic inspiration from some wonderful poems by wonderful poets. I'll also be sharing with you a spark, and that is a completely optional writing opportunity. I'll be sharing with you a dare, and the dare is a suggestion of how you might live poetry in the world. And as of next week, I'll be sharing with you poems from our celebration community, your poems. So week by week, I'll also invite you to send me poems. Now, just to say, some people will actually, and I will, write a poem every day this month, which is wonderful. Now, if that seems a bit steep to you, take it at your own pace. Do anything that you choose. 1 poem a week, 1 poem a month. It's all good. And so I'll invite you to send me 1 to 7 poems, up to 7 poems each month. Each week by Friday at 5 p.m. And I'll put all this information just below this video. So you'll be able to send those to me. My one request is please, no attachments. Just copy those poems right into the body of your email so it will just save me a little bit of a step. So that's what's coming up. Now there's also prizes. This year I'm giving the prizes myself. Everyone, of course, will receive a prize, whether you send me 1 poem or 30 poems, whatever. You are participating and you deserve a prize. I'll also just be pulling names out of a hat. I'm not judging the poems, just to say I don't want to do that. I just will pull random names out of a hat, and 3 of you will be able to choose whatever you like from my shop in terms of ebooks or music. And 1 person, the grand prize winner, will receive a Creative Spark session with me in which we can talk about your poetry or your creative life. And I'll just reflect back to you your wonders. So it will be a pleasure. So those are the prizes. And just the last thing to say, every year we have a theme. And this year our theme is moments. I think our lives are made up of moments. That's really what our lives are, just like an endless strand of moments. And to me, one of the great pleasures as a poet is to pay attention to the moment. Each moment really offers us a wealth of inspiration, beauty, goodness, food for thought. Even the difficulties yield something up for us. And so the poetic mind that takes a look and says, I'm going to find something here. That's really, and then put it into a poem. And the poem becomes something that helps us remember and internalize all of that, but also that we can share. So more on that as we go. Now, after I came up with this theme, I have been reading the book Olive Kitteridge by Elizabeth Strout. And I'm just going to read to you this wonderful quote that I just came across, and it just validated my decision to focus on moments. She writes, "One of those things about getting older was knowing that so many moments weren't just moments, they were gifts." So I love that. So we're going to jump right in today, and I'm going to give you a spark, and I'm going to give you a dare. So let's begin. I want to think about a moment that we observe something beautiful. And I'm going to share with you two little things. Dorothy Wordsworth, the sister of William Wordsworth, the great English poet laureate, went on a walk in April 15th, 1802 with her brother. And she came home and wrote this in her journal. So just as you listen, it's not a very long passage, but it's the quality of her attention, the freshness and vividness that I find so lovely. And also, I just want to say, I'm going to also put all of this is in here, Spring, a Folio Anthology. You can see how beautiful it is. I'll put a list of all the books that I use in case you want to chase them up yourself, because I love books. Here's what Dorothy says about their walk that day. "It was a threatening, misty morning, but mild. We set off after dinner from Ewsmere. When we were in the woods beyond Gowbarrow Park, we saw a few daffodils close to the waterside. We fancied that the lake had floated the seeds ashore and that the little colony had so sprung up. But as we went along, there were more and yet more. And at last, under the boughs of the trees, we saw that there was a long belt of them along the shore, about the breadth of a country turnpike road. I never saw daffodils so beautiful. They grew among the mossy stones about and about them. So pretty. Some rested their heads upon those stones as on a pillow for weariness, and the rest tossed and danced and reeled, and seemed as if they verily laughed with the wind that blew upon them over the lake. They looked so gay, ever glancing, ever changing." So there's Dorothy paying attention in a moment, and I want to say, because it's so fun to say, that I walked in that same place on Ullswater in the Lake District, and I was a little bit later than Dorothy and William, but I did see some daffodils, and actually it hailed on me at the same time, even in May. Now I'm going to share with you the poem. So William was inspired by his sister's journal entry and wrote one of the most famous poems, his most famous poems. I want to show you two things. Here's a beautiful book collection, also a Folio Society book of Wordsworth, and you can see, I hope, the gorgeous line cuts. What is his name? Robert? Sorry, I just give you the illustrator's name because I think his work is so beautiful. Oh, Peter Reddick. And then I also want to share with you one other thing. This is also so beautiful. This illustration is done by the Welsh artist Jackie Morris. And it's in the Barefoot Book of Classic Poems. So compiled and illustrated by Jackie Morris. Here's the poem. But isn't that beautiful? There's the daffodils. Get excited. They're coming. I wandered lonely as a cloud that floats on high o'er vales and hills, when all at once I saw a crowd, a host of golden daffodils, beside the lake, beneath the trees, fluttering and dancing in the breeze. Continuous as the stars that shine and twinkle on the Milky Way, they stretched in never-ending line along the margin of a bay. 10,000 saw I at a glance, tossing their heads in sprightly dance. The waves beside them danced, but they outdid the sparkling waters in glee. A poet could not but be gay in such a jocund company. I gazed and gazed, but little thought what wealth the show to me had brought. For oft, when on my couch I lie, in vacant or in pensive mood, they flash upon that inward eye, which is the bliss of solitude. And then my heart with pleasure fills and dances with the daffodils. Remembering that. So what's beautiful in terms of the moments, it's a twofer, isn't it? And when we add Dorothy, it's a threefer. Fourfer, maybe. Sorry, stop it, Kate. There is the moment of actually coming across this magnificent scene of just a sea of golden daffodils. And then, as he says, there is the moment, or many moments, afterward of remembering them. And Wordsworth very famously said that poetry, the origin of poetry, more or less, is emotion recollected in tranquility. So that will be the way for us too, is that more than likely, we're going to observe a moment. And then later, in the privacy of our home or wherever you're going to write, you'll write it down. And actually, I think the fullness of the experience comes to you in that moment. He really says that in this poem too, that I really didn't understand what the wealth of this moment was until I thought about it later, and until it kept coming to me and bringing me that joy and inspiration. So your spark this week, and you don't need to do any of these sparks, but in case it gets you going, is to observe a beautiful moment and see what comes of it for you. Write a poem about a moment when you saw something beautiful or marvelous that you never forgot. So that could be something that you observed this week, or it could be something from long ago, your choice. I can't wait to see what you come up with. And your dare this week, your dare is, just inspired by this book, which is absolutely stunning and beautiful. Your dare is to seek out a children's book or a beautifully illustrated book of poetry and spend a little time with it. Just images and words, and see what happens from that. Finally, just to sort of cap off today, I want to share with you a very, very drafty poem. This is my poetry notebook that I'm using right now, and it's messy and scratched out, and I always want you to know that, because you don't have to just sit down and write an epic in one fell swoop. Sometimes you might, but my own poems are drafty, and I wanted to share this little poem with you, which is a kind of invocation. I called it initiation to this book when I began this notebook just earlier this month. I hoped that it would give you the sense of the feeling that we're after. So it's called Initiation. Notebook, please be home to all my stars and mistakes, to my yearnings and word snares, to tangled metaphors and crystal towers of illusion. Please bear with me as I stumble. Please enshrine my pinnacles and drafty messes. Let me come here in working clothes, sit on your squashy sofa, lean back and dream. And that's what I hope this celebration will be for us. Let us come together in our working clothes, sit down on the squashy sofa of poetry. No need for formality, no need to be anyone but what we are, just but who we are, just ourselves, writing poems, having fun with words. That's what it's all about. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you for listening. I can't wait to read your poems. Please, again, send them to me by Friday, the 4th of April, about 5 p.m. Eastern, and I'll be thrilled to read them. And I'll have another video for you next week. I'd be so grateful if you'd like this video. It honestly encourages me so much. Share it with a poetry-loving or poetry-curious friend. And if you haven't, subscribe. It's wonderful to have you. The community that is growing up here is among the most loving, intelligent, sensitive, and generous, I can imagine. And that, my friends, includes you. So have a wonderful first week of poetry, and I'll see you next week.